South Korea today is one of the most highest economic countries in the world. However, many still wonder how it got here today. Originally, South Korea was a war-torn country in ruins. Koreans gave up completely, believing their country will not survive. In the UN at the time, Korea was the poorest of 102 nations. One man was able to change this. His name was Chung Hee. However, his life did not begin with triumph, as Korea was annexed by Japan. Park Chung-hee grew up on a poor farm in Korea, however scored the best in his whole entire school. Korea was recently annexed by the Russo-Japanese War, showing the Russian Empire and Japanese Empire going to war, and Japan winning and annexing Korea in 1910. Many Korean patriots protested this, but Park went a completely different way and joined the Japanese military. He was forced to join due to Japanese wanting young Korean men to join the military. In doing so, Park became one of the best soldiers and was praised by his peers, and was stationed at the Manchukuo Army, a puppet state assembled by the Japanese army in Manchuria. His mission was also to destroy the Korean Liberation Army, led by the famous Korean patriot Kim Gu or Kim Ko, who was famous in Korea from his works. Park became one of the largest and biggest soldiers known in the Japanese Empire. After the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Cold War erupted, showing the United States and the Soviet Union going to war with each other. The Korean War began in 1950 with North Korean forces invading South Korea. The North was led by Kim Il-sung, a guerrilla wartime leader, while the South was led by Dr. Simon-ri, a Korean patriot during Japanese annexation. Park Chung-hee was stationed with his best friend Kim Jong-pil and later assassin. He was demoted by Simon-ri to become an assistant citizen throughout the war. The war saw huge casualties, with Chinese and communist North Koreans and indirectly the Soviet Union against the US, UN, and South Korea. Park Chung-hee climbed the military hierarchy to become an assistant general. He was stationed at the American base in Fort Sill, where he grew his political ideologies, becoming a conservative. Later on, the war ended in 1953 with an armistice signed but not a peace treaty. South Korea, however, was devastating in ruins. South Korea was in ruins and economically struggling as well. No economic growth happened after the Korean War, and the US did not help it due to them going to the Vietnam War. Communist North Korea was even excelling them in each way possible, becoming the richest in Asia. Riots and protests began, with Dr. Simon-ri leaving office as well. Park Chung-hee took this to his advantage and staged a military coup upon Seoul, and was elected president for the next 16 years, beginning the miracle of the Han River. The Han River began when Park Chung-hee agreed to send over thousands of Korean workers to West Germany. Their paychecks alone equaled the GDP per capita. He also fixed up the Han River, which was brutally damaged by the war. He also planted many trees to prevent mudslides from killing many of the Korean citizens. He also started the New Village Act, which protected and helped many of the agricultural side of Korea. This replaced many of the backbreaking labor with machines and tech instead. Speaking of tech, he also provided many companies such as Samsung, Hyundai, and other companies in Korea like LG and others were able to provide a huge benefit from this action. This new movement that he caused was able to cause many shippings and exports upon Korea as well. Soon Korea was getting back upon its feet. This is called the First and Second Republic. Soon Korea was producing steel and oil. However, this was temporarily stunned due to the oil crisis in Asia. However, South Korea was able to recover. They were also rebuilding many of the ruins that were affected from the Korean War as well, and were starting huge tech companies across Asia as well. Soon they were surpassing North Korea greatly, and were becoming a really rich country in Asia. Koreans were now starting to work harder and harder each day, producing many goods across the countries. However, there was one problem that still Koreans faced, and that was North Korea. North Korea still terrorized them and tried to invade and conquer South Korea. Park Chung-hee dealt with this. Even though the Korean War ended in 1953, North Korea still sent special forces to invade and destroy South Korea. This became a huge infringement upon Koreans believing that South Korea will not survive as a nation. Park Chung-hee changed his mindset by hammering the message that 18-year-olds must join the military or else they can face jail time. He also spent many of the budget upon tanks, ships, air force, and weaponry. He also spent it on radar and missiles, artillery, and many others. He became a military authoritarian figure due to his past as a general. He became very huge upon this and started sending up many factories to build the military weapons he needed. He also created propaganda that started with anti-communism. This created many of the attitudes towards the North Koreans to this day, and communists in general. The problem worsened for South Korea when President JFK ended the relationship with Park due to his dictatorship. However, the US was going through the Vietnam War. Park took this advantage to repair the relationship. He sent the second largest amount of soldiers to Vietnam to aid the fight. He also met with many US presidents as well, such as Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald R. Ford, and the last he ever met was President Jimmy Carter. This will be the last due to Park Chung-hee's assassination. He also tried to repair the relationship with Japan. However, this saw many controversies as well because of Japan's annexation of Korea that happened before. Park also mechanized many of the South Korean industries as well to become more industrial to compete with the other countries. However, even though this may seem as a huge historical event, there are still many tragedies that came, with students protesting violently against him. Today, Park Chung-hee is seen as a very controversial leader, for many people saw him as a fascist dictator. From this, people saw him as trying to abolish human rights and go against democracy itself. He was seen to be very cruel and very egotistical about himself as well. Riots and protests began again, with South Korean students protesting against him. And also, he was almost assassinated. However, his wife was not so lucky. In a speech, a Japanese student who agreed to North Korean ideology tried to kill him. However, it was unsuccessful. He had many other assassination attempts. However, one turned out to be successful, known as the Blue House Incident, where Park was shot by his best friend. This will leave a permanent scar upon Park Chung-hee's regime. Today, Park Chung-hee is credited for making what South Korea is today. He's credited for making the companies, infrastructure, and making Korean people much more happier than they would be back then. He turned a third world country to a first world from his programming and industrial capabilities and pursuing. He also created the Korean military to be one of the strongest militaries in the world. In his honor, a golden statue was created in front of the Park Chung-hee Museum. The statue was seen walking forward and holding a blueprint. The statue saw many uprisings, with people wanting the statue destroyed due to Park Chung-hee's dictatorship. Many people celebrated the statue, thinking it was a good improvement upon it. No matter which side you see, however, Park Chung-hee left a scarring impact upon South Korea. Overall, Park Chung-hee was one of the greatest politicians to ever live. He led a small military uprising at the time to the dominant party in South Korea. He transformed a third world country to a first world from his industries and capabilities of what he pursued. This was Park Chung-hee's moment. This was his dream. Even though there may have been tragedy, there was triumph. He named this triumph the Miracle of the Han River.